The first thing I want to do is remove the wheel, so take off all 5 of your lug nuts with a 21mm socket. Now take the wheel off. If it's stuck on here, go ahead and put a lug nut back on so it doesn't fall off, and then use a rubber mallet and hit it from the backside. That should pop it right off. Take the lug nut off now that the wheel is free. There she goes. All right, take the wheel off. To remove the shock, I'm going to start up top here. We have to remove this nut. In my case, it's most likely not going to come off, which means I'll have to cut the nut and then get it out of there. Technically, this should come off. So the way you would do this is, first I'm going to try and just break it free. I'm using a 15mm or 9/16 wrench, whichever one fits best. For me, it's a 9/16, but 15mm would also work. Since this whole thing is spinning, I'm going to put some locking pliers on the tip here, on the top of the stud where there are no threads. It's supposed to be cut out for some pliers, but it's pretty rusty, so can't really see that anymore. But either way, lock them on as tight as you can so that you can get a good grip. And now they're leaning up against the frame here, and I can just go ahead and hopefully break this free. If this doesn't work, we're just gonna have to cut it. Okay. It did break free. We'll see how far we can get before it strips out where the pliers are holding on. That's it. That's the end of it. Well, technically, you should be able to go further, but I won't be able to. So what I'm going to do is what I probably would have done from the beginning if this was not on video, is just cut the nut. I'm going to take my cutting wheel and just cut the nut this way, and then you can do this with a manual hammer and chisel or punch. But I'm just going to take my air hammer because it's a little bit faster, and just take the rest of the nut off. Now let's take this off, and the bushing, and now let's move underneath. Now at the bottom you have an 18mm nut here, and the through bolt that pinches everything together has a 13mm head. So I'm going to hold that with a wrench, take the nut off, spin the bolt, make sure it spins. Sometimes these will get seized in there and they won't spin. Luckily mine does, so I'm going to take my wrench off. Now you can push the bolt straight through. Take it out the other side. Here it is. This one is in poor condition. I will not be reusing this. I do not recommend reusing a bolt that looks like this. I do have another one. It's not new, but it will work for this application. It's the same size, same width. But regardless, don't reuse something that looks like this. Now press your shock down. Take these off. That'll make it easier for us to pull it out through here. And there you have it. There's your old shock. All right, now I have the new shock on my workbench here, and what I want to do is prime it or start it. Basically, I need to compress it all the way down a few times. I like to do this 3 to 5 times. That'll mix in all the oils that are in there and basically get everything activated and ready to go for when you actually start driving on it. To do that easier, I'm going to put on the nut at the top so that I don't press on this. That'll hurt. And once you have this on, this nut, the new nut, is a 16mm. I'm going to use a 16mm socket. This will give me a much nicer area to press on. And I'm just going to press this down all the way till it bottoms out. Like I said, 3 to 5 times. It's not going to be super easy, but just make sure you go all the way down and let it extend all the way back up. And do this again. The more you do this, the more you'll notice that it'll get stiffer. That's the point. That's good. That means everything is mixing in together. Do it a couple more times, and then we should be good to install it. All right, let's put it in the vehicle. Now to install the new shock, put on this washer facing up, so make sure it cups upwards, and then this bushing with the little lip at the top. This is what's going to go through the frame here. Now slide it up into position at the top, making sure it does go through the frame, and line it up with your control arm at the bottom. It should fall right into place. Now take your mounting bolt. Like I said, I'm using a new one, well, new to me. Slide it into position here. Okay, there we go. Need to wiggle it around a little bit until it fits. So I'm going to put the nut on, that way it's secure, but I'm not going to tighten it yet, and I'll explain to you in a little bit why. We need to raise this at right height. Now I'm going to take a pull jack. That's because I'm on a lift. If you're on the ground, you can just use a jack. Lift up this whole knuckle. Don't lift on the lower ball joint stud, you'll ruin it. But I'm raising the control arm up to simulate right height. And what this is going to do is it's going to allow the lower shock bushing here to not be twisted the wrong way when I tighten it, because when you clamp it together, that's how it's going to sit forever. And then every time it goes over bumps, the truck goes over bumps, it's going to twist that bushing. But if it starts out at the wrong angle, well, it's going to wear prematurely. So I'm just going to raise this up a little bit. Right about there is good. All right, so obviously if you're reusing your original bolt, use your 13 wrench on that side and 18 socket on this side. I'm using slightly different sizes, but basically tighten this down and then torque it to 87 foot-pounds. I'm going to make sure that the bolt doesn't spin on the other side, which it doesn't. That's it right there. While we have this up at right height, put in the top bushing and then the washer. As you can see, I put this with this little lip facing down, and then the washer kind of cups over the bushing. And then finally put your new nut on, mounting nut. This is a 16 millimeter now. So I'm just going to take my wrench and tighten it up. Now there's a torque for this, which is 46 foot-pounds. However, I'm not going to be able to torque it because the stud is going to spin, and I will have to hold it with pliers. As you can see, it's already spinning. Once I get to the tighter area, I'll have to hold it with pliers. And basically just go until you start seeing these squish a little bit. You don't want to completely crush these bushings, but once they start squishing down a little bit, that's when you want to stop. If you go too far, they will prematurely wear. So I'm going to get my locking pliers set up here. Okay, right about there should be good. As you can see, the bushing expanded a little bit, and it's now matching the diameter of this washer, and I didn't crush it too much. Like I said, if you completely crush it, it'll just start splitting and it will wear prematurely. So I'm going to leave it at this, and now as always, I recommend doing the other side. I do those in pairs. Now let's take off the support. Perfect. Let's put the wheel back on. Put on all 5 of your lug nuts, bottom them out, and torque them to 150 foot-pounds. That is if you have the 5 lug wheel pattern. If you have 7 lugs, then you want to torque them to 100 foot-pounds. Double check them. There you have it.